has provided an update on his Truth Social account confirming the United States military carried out the strikes. In a statement posted to his Truth Social, President Trump says the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with US law enforcement. Details to follow.
And in the latest, President Nicolas Maduro has declared a state of emergency. This is following the loud explosions that were heard this morning around 2 a.m., where 7 explosions were heard in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas. And for more details, we're now going to go to my colleague, Jyotsna Kumar, who is going to get us all the updates. Jyotsna, what can you tell us?
Yes, as you just mentioned, of course, there has been explosions in Venezuela above Caracas, and there are videos of Venezuelans gathering outside in the streets after this has happened. Maduro has now, of course, declared a state of emergency, calling these attacks as U.S. aggression. So what we know so far, and these attacks happened at 2 a.m. local time. We know that 7 explosions had occurred over Caracas. The exact locations are not clear yet. Of course, we'll have to wait and see the details that will come out later. But we know that, of course, Maduro has now declared a state of emergency. We've seen Maduro trying to tell, civilians to prepare for this for long before, although he was open to some kind of negotiations with Trump. But so far, what we know is that there has been a declaration of emergency, a state of emergency has been declared, and he has called these U.S. aggression that we know. Of course, these loud explosions were heard, and these sounds were, they somehow resemble the aircraft revolving around the air of Caracas, what we know so far. All these civilians were out, and what we know is the explosions did continue for at least 15 minutes. The location, we don't know where it is exactly, but so far these are the details that we're getting in. We have reactions from Petro, of course, calling this U.S. aggression. So far, we have no reactions from the U.S. as we know so far, but we have seen Trump, of course, indicating since Monday about these attacks that he's ready to do that so far. We've seen these attacks on these drug cartel or vessels that they've alleged these attacks on narcotics or narco-terrorists, as U.S. has been calling so far in the Caribbean. These attacks have happened, and they, of course, according to U.S. officials, 107 people have been killed in these U.S. attacks on the Caribbean that we know so far. This has been happening since September, but of course we'll have to wait and see what kind of reaction we see from Venezuela. President Maduro has called for mobilization so far what we know, and Maduro has been saying that Trump wanted a regime change in Venezuela. Whether it leads to an escalation, of course, we'll have to wait and see and wait for a U.S. reaction for that.
Right, Jyotsna. And while Maduro has ordered immediate deployment of the country's comprehensive defense, there are more statements coming in from the Venezuela's foreign ministry. The ministry has strongly condemned the U.S. aggression. Authorities call on all national forces to step up mobilization plans. And Venezuela's president orders all national defense plan. He says that now they are being implemented. Now, for our audience who are just joining us, to summarize what has happened so far. Now, according to witnesses, explosions, loud noises, and columns of smoke were being heard and seen in Venezuelan capital Caracas in the early hours of Saturday today, that is January 3rd at around 2 a.m. local time. The southern area of the city, which is near a major military base, was left without electricity in the aftermath of the explosions. Now, according to the video that we have received, multiple blasts lighting up the night sky was seen from a distance, followed by loud explosions and columns of smoke rising. And now, just to put things in context, U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly promised land operations in Venezuela amid efforts to pressure President Nicolas Maduro to leave office. And this has included expanding sanctions, threat of ramped-up U.S. military presence in the region, and more than 24 strikes on vessels allegedly involved in trafficking drugs in the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. So far, we've heard from the Venezuelan government, but the Pentagon is yet to comment on the situation so far. Venezuelan state TV channel on a post on X shared a statement from the Venezuelan government, and I'm quoting here. Venezuela denounces the United States' aggression against Venezuelan territory and population in the civil and military locations in the city of Caracas, the state, Miranda, Aragua, and La Guaira.
all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Chakodash. Double honor to my teachers, the apostles, the elders, and the bishops of Great Millstone, who watch over our souls. Shalom to the Akim worldwide that are sincere and serious doing the will of Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Chakodash. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 1 and 2 to you all. Stay strong and stay mighty. And take not the Holy Spirit from us, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai. I'm the brother, the disciple, Koshar Banyamia from the branch in Great Millstone, Barbados. As you can, breaking news, U.S. Carry out strikes on Venezuela. And the same Maduro captured. Looking more into it. But this is Micah 2, and we can go to verse 10, but you see the beginning of the chapter says woe to oppressors. Now who's oppressing the people in the world right now, big man? Let me get a preset before I get there. Right? I just saw one comment I was reading. America can't keep doing this doing this nonsense, man. Yes, right? So this is Nahum 3:1. Woe to the bloody city. Who's the bloody city? That's who so-called white people. Really the elites, Edomites. Use that bloody city. Everywhere you go, you bring lies, you bring death, you speak lies, you cause death, you bring chaos, hunger, you name it. You are that bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. You see? You constantly destroy people's lives, brother. Micah 2:1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields, and take them by violence, and houses, and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. So this is what Edom is doing to Maduro, Venezuela. They really want the oil, right? But that can involve Russia, that can involve Iran, big man. And I think they did something with Iran last night too.
Navy task force to the Caribbean, what we know. And on Monday, what we know is that President Trump had said that U.S. hit and destroyed a docking area, which that U.S. said that has been used allegedly by drug boats. These are drug boats that were attacked. He didn't really specify where the strike occurred beyond saying that it was along the shore. Of course, if confirmed, this would be, of course, the first known land strike on Venezuelan oil. And what we know right now is that there has been attacks on over Caracas. These were 7 explosions that happened in the early hours, about 2 a.m. And of course, there has been a declaration of state of emergency. Maduro has now blamed Trump there, the U.S. for these aggression, but we have not so far got any kind of statements from U.S. so far. That's what we know.
The Venezuelan government has issued a statement denouncing what it terms
No, this is
as
a tweet from Kamala
military aggression.
Prasad Bisesar, right, from Trinidad. Earlier this morning, Saturday the 3rd of January 2026, the United States commenced military operations within the territory of Venezuela. Trinidad and Tobago is not a participant in any of these ongoing military operations. Trinidad and Tobago continues to maintain peaceful relations with the people of Venezuela, but in a couple of posts, she was siding with the U.S., but now things getting real. She is she turning her back?
And Venezuelan government is again given a call for a mobilization plan.
Trump says U.S. has struck Venezuela and Maduro has been removed from the country. So, yeah, man, we in the time of war. There's a precept as well. Right?
asserted its right to exercise the country's legitimate defense to protect its people. This is a statement by the Venezuelan government at this moment, and these are some of the scenes of what in fact transpired in Caracas. And my colleague Jyotsna Kumar has been
Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Any right thinking person can see that we're not in the world is not in a time of peace. The world is in a time of war. Any right thinking person can see that.
Venezuela. So considering the fact that, of course, it's a time when everyone is sleeping, but because of these attacks, there is, of course, there has been no electricity. Has been a wipeout considering that. So we've seen some images of these residents running out when these attacks occur. These explosions that have occurred in the skies that has been lighting up the dark skies. There has been no electricity there, and there has been reactions from the residents as well. We've just heard residents being scared about this, because they just heard these attacks happen. Well, we know that Maduro has been, of course, he's mobilized this military. He came out with a statement saying that he has ordered the immediate deployment of the command for the comprehensive defense of the nation and comprehensive defense directorate. So far, that's what we know. Now, the site of explorations, these are reports that we know that have come out. These, according to reports, what we know is that the site of explosions near the key military sites, because what U.S. media has been saying is that Trump ordered these strikes on not just inside Venezuela, but military sites. So, when we talk about these sites, what we know about these key military sites is one is in Fuerte Tiona. This is the largest military complex in Venezuela and the headquarters of the armed forces. Another military site we know is La Carlota, which is a military air base in eastern Caracas, and it is historically used by the Air Force.
Right. Indeed.
Yeah.
Go on, just give us those details.
Absolutely. Of course, the other air base where we know about is the Aragua Air Base, which is a major Venezuelan Air Force installation. Another is the La Guayara. Now, of course, this is primarily a port and coastal state, but it hosts naval and air defense installations tied to the military logistics. Now, these are the key sites that we know when we talk about these military sites in Venezuela. And what we know is that U.S. media has now informed that Trump had ordered these attacks, not just on Venezuela, inside Venezuela, but key military sites. That's what we know, Saleh.
That is indeed correct. So it's not just the capital city of Caracas, but several military installations and other critical infrastructure that the Americans have in fact struck, as my colleague Jyotsna Kumar there was pointing out. Fuerte Tiona, the largest military complex in Venezuela and the headquarters of the Venezuelan Armed Forces. The Aragua Air Base, which happens to be a major Venezuelan Air Force installation. La Guaira, which is primarily a port and also a coastal state, but it hosts naval and air defense installations. Professor Deason, this does appear to be a very calculated strike by the Americans, not just on the Venezuelan capital, but on Venezuela's capacity to defend itself.
Yes. So this is the possible pathways. One of it can simply be to degrade Venezuela, hoping for a decapitation strike, that is regime change. Alternatively, this is the United States softening its targets, that is knocking out defensive capabilities of Venezuela to the extent that it would be possible to enter with a significant amount of troops at a later point in time. Now, whether or not, again, this is a decapitation strike or a preparation for a larger invasion, it remains to be seen. This is part of how war planning works as well. You keep your options open in the beginning, and I think this also depends on how Venezuela actually reacts. If they just allow the United States to continue bomb Venezuela, then at some point they will be asked for a surrender on America's term, or you will have its defensive capabilities degraded to such a point that the U.S. can then enter with troops. The alternative is, of course, if Venezuela actually fights back and imposes costs on the United States. But we haven't seen this yet. However, this is...
Yeah, but we're not forgetting that Russia backing Venezuela.
Mira, pero ven acá, no se metan para acá, no sabemos que hay ahí que se pueda explotar. Sí.
Ay, chamo. Mamá, que pasaron aviones y yo escuché. Ay, mamá, mira otra. Shit. Ay, mamá. Apaga las luces, apaga las luces. Ay, carajo. Carajo. Shit. Apaga eso y apágalo. Mamá, tremenda explosión. Sí, mamá. Para allá, amiga. Cuidado con el teléfono, cuidado con el teléfono. No sé qué hace que los nervios te den. ¿Qué? Mira esa mierda, marico. Mierda, marico. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Mamá, huevo. ¡Qué locura! Moscaí, Moscaí. Mira esa mierda, explotaron allá toda esa mierda porque aquí no está explotando. Mierda, marico, se prendió el peo en esta mierda, yo. Huevo.
If one can't see, if one can't see that America's the bloody city, then I don't know what the fuck to tell one, boy. Real thing. If one can't see that, that America, Babylon the Great, right? That whore, right? Causing death, causing wars, causing famine. If one can't see that, then I don't know I don't know what to tell one, brother. It's right. And the brother just had a dream there. That just sent it. You just ready to format off, right? I just dreamt that Venezuela started attacking our ports and refineries with missiles. So we in the time of war, big man. Breaking news: NBC: Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's rebels are not known, and it is unclear if the U.S. has a strategy beyond removing him from power. Russian President Vladimir Putin will likely not be happy with this latest escalation, and it may affect his dealings with the U.S. government going forward. Right?
Or on this story, we can bring in Eduardo Rios, director of Gnosis Advisory, a member of the Sciences Po Political Observatory of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Venezuela defense chief says we will not surrender. So I just read you in a time of war, brother. This attack happened when I was sleeping, big man, playing with my balls. Huh? Remember when I was doing all kind of nonsense. Probably committing adultery. You see? You see how quick your life could change, big man? Imagine people in Venezuela, big man, where really attack happening in the port, brother. When they don't fear the Lord, when they don't see what's going on around one, big man. We in the time of war, brother.
Thank you so much for being with us today. So, as we've been discussing, U.S. President Trump on social media says these strikes were carried out by the U.S., they were successful, and they have President Maduro in custody. This is a rather significant escalation of what's been happening, if this is all true.
Right, so one report I just read saying his whereabouts are unknown, but no, this one saying, let me see what date this is here, or hour ago. Right, so we can see, man, we can see. Just bringing news as it comes up, right?
Is this now an opportunity in Venezuela for the opposition?
Thank you very much for that question. So, first of all, this is the most significant political event in Venezuela in at least the last 12 years, if not the last 20. In the morning, the U.S. attacked military targets and then took Maduro away. So now that means two things, and we need to evaluate two scenarios. First of all, how does the pro-Maduro or pro-Chavez camp react, and how does the opposition, on what space does that leave to the opposition? So right now,
Can't forget China too, you know. Can't forget China in the lands with Venezuela and Russia. You can't forget that. Can't forget that.
reaction from the pro-Maduro camp has been very muted.
Also Iran.
That will change in the next few hours, but there is not a clear successor to Maduro, and there is a real risk of division within the pro-Chavez camp. There is very little, it's early in the morning, popular reaction to this, either for or against. So that means that the government has not pushed its troops or its followers to go outside, to go on the streets and fight this. That might change. So right now we are very much beholden to what is going to happen on the Chavez side. Now on the opposition side, what could happen is if and when there is a crumbling of the current power that Maria Corina takes over, if the current power stays there, then we don't know. This is a very fluid situation. I wouldn't say that this changes the political dynamic in a way that it hasn't been changed in the past 25 years. This, however, does not give clarity; it just gives fluidity. What is going to happen next? Nobody knows, and I think that's very important to point that out at this second.
Eduardo, thank you. I do want you to stay with us. We're going to head now to Caracas and bring in a journalist that we've been speaking with there, Norris Argot Soto. Norris, thank you for being back on the program with us. As you just heard there, Eduardo was saying this is the most significant development in 25 years, possibly. So since we last spoke, has there been any fresh reaction to what's happening? Because, as we both mentioned, very fluid situation.
Like I said previously, there hasn't been a clear response from the members that are still in the country, the members of Maduro government. But I would like to point out, because I was listening to our other guests, I'm gonna explain a little bit about the laws in Venezuela. Of course, if this were a normal situation, the vice president, in this case Delcy Rodriguez, would have to take charge, and if she was unable to do so, then it would be the responsibility of the president of the National Assembly, which is his brother, to take the power. But since we have a political void since the elections of 2024, this is making the situation even harder to assimilate and to read, to know what's going to happen. Because if we take the results from the 2024 elections, it would be Edmundo González Urrutia, who would have to take charge immediately of the country. But right now, we are not sure of what are going to be the next steps. This is a developing news. It's changing, as fast changing, by not even by the hour, by the second. As we stay speaking here, it might be some development. So this is a very hard situation to read for all of us.
Thank you, Norris. Stay with us. I'm going to bring back in Eduardo Rios. So, Eduardo, you heard there from our correspondent in Caracas, who's like, we don't know what's happening. I mean, if we follow the rules that were set at the 2024
Here's she voice trembling. Here's she voice trembling. Eka halal Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Bahasham Akakadash. We seen the fall of our enemies, boy. You know what I mean? We seen we seen the stage of war.
First of all, yes to
the state of World War III. Because Venezuela allies step in. I mentioned China, I mentioned Russia. Russia's the big dog. Russia's the real, Russia's the Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? Russia's the Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? And the US is like the US is like the Roman Reigns. You know what I mean? It's like I use Roman Reigns because Roman. If you see it spiritually, the US the WWE's do skits based off of certain things in the world. Roman Reigns, right? Roman Reigns. The Romans are reigning. If you can see that through the spirit, you will know where it's coming from. The Romans are reigning. Who are the Romans? Esau, Edom. They're the Romans, the fourth empire that that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream. The statue, and Daniel broke it down to him. The fourth empire, right? The toes, the feet, Iron Mix and Mary Clear, right? The revival of the Roman Empire, that's Esau Edom. So Roman reigns. Esau Edom is reigning. Is right?
But I think that right now what we need to be focused on is what you are, which is what are the declaration from the Chavista government. And right now nobody's taking over in a situation where clearly Maduro has been taken by the US government, dead or alive, by the way, according to, if we take Delcy's point of
So
view.
if this is true that Maduro, because you see here Maduro captured and flown out, and they think they heard it just on the news clip.
Eduardo, I just want to follow up with that since we're not sure who actually
a regime change, because that's what the whore does. You know what I mean? Set up coups. I show you a video of these military helicopters flying in the second, and then the third today. This morning here there was an attack. Is right? So they set up coups and then boom. They set up strategies and then set up coups and then invade the countries. Boom. Kill the president. Oh, he get killed, wherever, and then set up a new regime, a new regime. You know what I mean?
Something can happen with more certainty than others. Chaos can happen. A very easy transition can happen. Those two things are on the extremes. It's political change in the past 20 years.
Or vacuum creates, in some situations, chaos.
So that's what I'm saying. So this is the most consequential moment of political change in the past 12 years, if not 20 years. That does mean that right now we are in a situation where everything can happen and something can happen with more certainty than others. Chaos can happen. A very easy transition can happen. Those two things are on the extremes. If any of those happens, it can happen, but they're on the extremes. What is more likely to happen right now is that there's going to be either a consensus figure from Chavismo mounting some sort of fight.
Excuse me there, Eduardo. We've just got some news coming in. The U.S. State Department is saying that Maduro will finally face justice for his crimes. This is a new dawn for Venezuela. If he would be tried in court, who would try him?
Now there would be something around drugs. So there's evidence that some of the military in Venezuela has been doing smuggling of all sorts. So if you want to try him for drugs in the U.S. courts, you can try him for that. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, there are clear violations of human rights in Venezuela. So you could also try him for that. I don't know in the U.S., but you could put him in the right court for that. So there are ways in which if you wanted to try Maduro legally, you could. That's another question. The practical question is that how they try Maduro will have an implication of on this first point, which is there a consensus figure in Chavismo, or are Chavismo going to divide, crumble, and then something else comes quickly? So right now we are consensus figure. There are two scenarios possible here. There's a consensus figure that comes. That means a negotiated exit, or there is a crumbling of the government, and that then again is another scenario which might lead to chaos. Those are the two things that you need to think of. The rest is going to be very fluid, and there's going to be a lot of things popping up by the second. But I think that if you keep in mind those two things, consensus versus crumbling. In consensus, there's a negotiation. In crumbling, it can be chaos, or there can be a very fast power grab.
Revelation 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. The third world war.
We're going to head back to Caracas and speak again to Norris there, our journalist who's been reporting for us following the story. So